Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife console for you. In front of us is the Spyderco PPT. Actually, it's three different versions of the PPT, and I'm really excited to share all three of them with you and talk about this knife. So what is PPT? That is an acronym for the three creators of this knife. Fred Perrine and Philippe Perotti are two martial arts and weapons experts, and they collaborated with Sasha Teal, so you have Perrine, Perotti, and Teal, so PPT, to create a knife with a sort of tactical nature, but with a nice ergonomic and everyday carry sort of knife-making approach. So Sasha is known for making very practical, very nice everyday carry style blades with this very unique rock pattern right here. And he wanted to integrate that with the strength of a Reeve integral lock, which you'll see here, and make it with the sort of design and tacticality of Perrine and Perotti's design. So what came out was the PPT, and he still makes a custom version of this knife. I'm not sure if it's orderable. I just looked at it on his website. So Spyderco picked up on this, and they've created this production version. The original version came out in S30V and G10. They all sport this nice lanyard on the back. It was a Reeve integral lock. It had a deep carry clip, and it was a very interesting knife, and I think it sold pretty well. And then they came out with this version right here. This is also S30V, but it's been given a black titanium nitride coating. Titanium nitride is not the strongest coating out there, but it does function quite well. I've had a few objects in my life with this coating, and it has stood out very well. Not on knives. It's not quite as tough, I think, as Cerakote or DLC, but perhaps I'm wrong on that. This one still seems to be looking nice. And then the last version, which I'm going to keep out so we can take a look at just this one and not screw up the camera, is the S90V version. This is a brand new one that's out right now. This is a sprint run with S90V and carbon fiber scales. So before we start looking at the knife anymore, let's get some vital signs on this guy. Up front, you are looking at about 2.75 inches of cutting length on a 3.25 inch blade. So you're losing about a half an inch to that forward finger choil. It's a small blade length, but the blade functions quite well. We'll talk about that in a second. Overall length on the knife is about 7.4 inches, something like that. If you extend out on the lanyard here, you're getting to 9.75 inches, but let's not really count that as part of the handle. The effective grip area is about 4.4 inches. If you include the lanyard, you're about 6.75. The handle length is coming in at about 4.1 inches, something like that. The overall thickness of the handle, although it varies because of this rock pattern, is more or less about 0.56, maybe 0.57 if you want to round up there. And the overall weight on this knife comes in at 4.89 ounces. Now this is the lightest of the three, so that's about 4.9. This one is about 5.06, and this one was about 5.1. So maybe there's some weight savings in there from the carbon fiber and stuff, but they're all coming in right at about 5 ounces. So a bit heavy for a 2.75 inch bladed knife or cutting edge knife, but you have to understand it from its design perspective. And let's go ahead and talk about that by breaking it down anatomically. Up front is that full flat ground clip pointed S90V blade. I love the satin finish that they've done on this version right here. I think that it looks good on all three. This one might have been the most beautiful variant with the titanium nitride coating. That one I wouldn't really want to use very hard. But this one comes with that nice wedge up front. The blade stock is actually quite thin. I'll bring out the calipers one time. Here, it comes in at 0.116, so like 11 thousandths right there. And then behind the edge, it's coming in, let's see if I can relax this a little bit, at 0.16. So extremely thin, but right behind the edge right there. Even thinner than, say, the Paramilitary 2. Speaking of the Paramilitary 2, let's go ahead and bring one of those out for a size comparison. Here's the Para 2 and the Para 3 right here. So I think these are very good size comparisons. You can see that the PPT falls somewhere in between, but closer to the Para 3 in overall size right there. So it's a nice everyday carry size. The blade length of 2.75 inches is a little bit short for maybe every need, but for simple lighter duty needs, this is going to function well. And with that slicing ability, it's incredible. I carried this a couple of times, and it is one of the best slicers that Spyderco makes. Honestly, this is as good or better than the PM2 in slicing performance. It's just incredible. It does function quite well, even though it's really designed as a tactical thing. As you can see, they've designed it to have a very strong tip. The swedge there provides a much thinner and stronger tip right there. It's very, you could use this to stab very easily. I think that it's designed also to be held like this, so that the blade angulates backwards and can be used in sort of a fighting sort of a stance. I'm not going to pretend that I know the first thing about knife fighting, and I'm not going to encourage anyone to ever do that, but it is a thing that this knife was sort of designed for, so just be aware of that. It also has some jimping up on top right here. I found that the jimping really suits you. If you hold the knife back here, the thumb rests right there. If you choke up on it, the thumb rests right there. I've also noticed that it works quite well in the overhand grip right here for draw cutting needs. A lot of control on the blade with that jimping. It's not overly sharp, but it works quite well. Deployment is through the Spidey hole right here. It's very easy to do it through the traditional just thumb opening. This knife does not really like to be flicked open with the thumb. I'm not very adept at doing that. I can reach it from the backside here and get into the Spidey hole and try to open it. I'm not always successful at it. I just was able to do it that time. But because the lock bar comes up this high, it's kind of hard to access it, sort of like the Sleesh buoy in that regard. But it does open quite reliably like this. So I guess moving back, we should talk about the pivot. It runs on phosphor bronze washers. Another element as to why this knife doesn't really flick open as easy as a lot of other ones. I guess I'm figuring it out now, but you can use the fattier thumb. Sort of reminds me of the Spyderco Myrtle in terms of its overall action. Maybe a little bit less stiff than that one. In any case, the phosphor bronze washers, you know, will be strong and reliable for a very long time. So if you're just understanding of the fact that this will not be the fastest knife in your collection, it's a very nice, robust pivot system. That's keeping in mind with the handles here, which you can see sport a Reeve integral lock style interface right here. You'll notice that this side of the titanium is considerably thicker than over here. And this just sort of furthers the argument of what exactly is a liner lock versus a frame lock. They've clearly beefed up the frame here for it to be the lock side, and this side is thinner in terms of the metal. But what you'll notice, especially if you flip it over and look at the tail end of the knife, is that the titanium liner is thinner over here, but the carbon fiber seems to be a little bit thicker. And so I think that they've balanced the knife out in terms of the overall thickness. I'm sure that they've done it on this one as well. And you can see the G10 is a bit thicker on this side than it is over here. So very interesting that they've done that, and it's interesting to highlight that engineering feat right there. Let's move back to the handle scales right here. This is one of my favorite things about this knife. It's a really nicely done pattern. It's very comfortable in the hand. The edges have been contoured so they're not sharp in any way. The ergonomics on this knife are very interesting. I will say that in this choked up position, even though it fits in the hand well, I'll say that this choil is a bit awkward. My finger doesn't fall right into it. Right there, it's a little bit too cramped for my fingers. Maybe this is designed for smaller hands, but it's not ideal right there. It is very comfortable like this, and this is my preferred sort of slicing sort of position on this knife. With this lanyard, it does allow you to have a very secure grip, and so you're not going to lose the knife. You can kind of flip it around very easily. You can leave it in your hand for a little bit of an extra padding right there. Kind of an interesting thing. Very comfortable though. The ergos are nice for probably most hands. For larger hands, it gets a bit cramped up there, so do be aware of that. I really enjoy the deep carry pocket clip right here. It's a one position pocket clip, but it functions quite well. It's got a nice amount of spring and ramp on it. Well, I really like this knife. If you guys are on the fence about picking one up, they do have this S90 and carbon fiber version right now. It's very nice. If you're willing to understand the sort of design elements about this knife and why it is the way it is, then you'll really enjoy it. It's quite a nice offering from Spyderco. Very cool. Tell me what you guys think of the PPT in the comments down below. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my channel here. Follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunkey. And as always, guys, take care.